Hi everyone, my name is Julien Green. I worked with Jack Burns and the edge rowing team from August 2022 till about March 2023. I want to give a quick testimonial here about my overall positive experience with the team there. And just give some insight for future potential athletes into what it's like to be part of the team. I've been rowing since about 2009 when I started in high school. I rowed through high school and then through college, and for a few years after college, just at my local rowing club. I had a lot of success in college. I had some success at a high school level, and then I had some success just with the local club rowing team. I'm from Western New York. There's not a huge rowing scene here, but we're pretty close to where Canadian Henley happens, and just some other local races. So in 2020, I was forced to stop with COVID. I just had some life changes as well. I had been training pretty much consistently for maybe around a decade, and then I had a pretty quick and sudden stop in 2020, which unfortunately was not physically beneficial for me, where I pretty much just stopped working out for about 2 years. During that time, I gained some weight. Generally, I was there were certain parts of my life that had taken some steps forward, but not having that workout routine and that sport in my life definitely impacted my general levels of happiness. So in summer of 2022, I wanted to get back into the sport. I decided I was going to try coaching at my local club that I had been a part of for a long time, and so I coached there for the summer, and I love the sport, and spending that time around athletes and around boats just made me realize that I wanted to be rowing again, that having that be a part of my life is something that is important to me and I wanted to pursue. So the problem with that was that I was in the worst spot that I had been in health and fitness wise since I had started training in any way, shape, or form. I knew that if I was going to be successful in getting back into any kind of shape that I would want to be in, I would need some more perspective and guidance to just get me towards the goals that I wanted to. That's about when I reached out to Jack and the edge rowing team. Even though I'd had years of training experience, I knew that if I was going to be doing this training effectively all on my own, and in my current health and fitness position, I was going to need to set some long-term goals and have a long-term plan to achieve those goals. In the past, I've been able to rely on my college or club coaches to set, make, and follow those plans for me. I just had to show up at practice every day. But this time, I was really doing it all on my own. With that freedom in front of me and kind of the level of motivation I had to change where I was at, I knew that I wanted a better understanding of how the best people do this, so elite athletes, how they set and accomplish long-term training goals, but also how I was going to get from where I was to being in a place where I could follow the type of training plan an elite athlete would make, and be able to be successful in that. On top of that, I also knew that I was going to need to work on other aspects of my life that contribute to my overall health and then my performance metrics. So factors like sleep, nutrition, strength training, which kind of goes into training, but recovery as well. Stuff that I'd have I'd had some knowledge, and I have some knowledge now of, but I knew that if I were to go to someone who had really studied these areas at an elite level, there would be a lot for me to move the needle on in those areas, which would help me personally in my overall life, but also in the performance metrics that I was going to be chasing in the near term. The specific thing that stands out to me that kind of jumped right to the front of my head when I read this question was just the depth and specificity of knowledge in pretty much every area that I possibly had a question on. As a quick and easy example, I use a fitness tracker called Whoop. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with that in the rowing world, and it was really helpful in giving me a ton of data back on my on how workouts were going for me, on things like sleep performance and stress levels and other stuff. And there were a lot of times where looking at that, I would be looking at that data and not understanding either what was going on with the current state of my training, how I was feeling, anything else. And almost anytime that I went to Jack or the team, I'd either find somebody who had a similar experience or could show me a trend that had something similar to it, to what I was seeing, or just gave me an easy explanation of what I was seeing. And that's like a super specific example, but there were lots of times where I asked Jack about specific form questions, or hey, like I saw this team that was rowing this way at a World Cup. What do you think about that? Or like, why do you think they're rowing like this? Lots of simple or specific or broad questions, and if Jack didn't have an answer for me right away, he would always find one for me. The other big point that I would kind of bring up in response to the question of what I was most impressed with was definitely Jack and the Edge team's dedication to improving the service. I was there every month that I was there. I could see the work that Jack was putting into, Jack and the whole team were putting into each athlete individually, my personal programming, but also like what tools we could help or could help us as a team, constantly asking us questions about things that we found successful or found that were successful for us or not, and just really trying to push the envelope on how he could provide the best possible service. And I think it really showed in what my experience with them was, and what the Edge rowing team is, and who they are. To be honest, there's just so many small things that I've learned across the board. The biggest takeaway I personally would say was just general training plans. Like, I guess the theory behind the best way to push programming and get the most out of it. I say that as something that I did specifically devote time to learning more, specifically while I was working with Jack. And the Edgerton team had an incredible wealth of knowledge to share as far as programming goes. But outside of that, I ended up getting a ton out of things that I didn't necessarily expect going into working with the Edge rowing team. There were a few seminars specifically that I learned a lot from, where the team brought in some prominent names from across the rowing world, some former athletes and coaches who'd had pretty distinguished careers, listening to their stories, like having those connections, being able to listen to the success that some of those athletes had and how they had that success, I definitely have some lasting lessons that I learned from hearing those stories. I made huge strides in my sleep and nutrition, and some nuances in form stuff that I thought I was really on top of, but things that we found ways to again just push that needle on, push that envelope on. That there are things that I wouldn't have addressed if I wasn't working with with a team that was so dedicated to finding ways for every athlete to improve. And what I guess the other point that I would kind of try and make here that I don't think I've really touched much up to this point is the community of other athletes that I had to bounce ideas off of, talk to. A few of those people, I even though I haven't been working with a team in a little while, I'm still talking to on a regular basis about how my training is going, how their training is going. Having that community of people who are in a similar place, following relatively similar plans. Everyone is tailored to their own place, but a lot of the same general ideas and methodologies are being applied. Having that community to push what you're working on, it was invaluable. There are people who I don't see myself not talking to anytime in the near future about how training is going and everything. Again, one of those places where maybe Jack didn't have an exact answer for a super specific question I had, but somebody else would have something to input, or might have seen something similar and been able to say, hey, I tried this in response to like this dilemma, and these are the things that helped me. I know that I spoke to a lot of the other athletes about things myself that I just talking about my experience further, I think made me reconsider some of the things that I'd worked on, and I hope was able to pass on some knowledge, which was a fulfilling experience for me as well. I started by saying this, but it's really hard to encapsulate all the things that I learned while working with the Edge Rowing team. Anything in my life that rowing touched, I learned something in. If you have goals in rowing or in life, there just isn't a question that joining the Edge Rowing team will help you achieve those goals. I could elaborate further, but it's as simple as that. I would say that I'm the happiest that I've been in relation to the sport itself that I have been since I've been out of college. I think there's a fun, I say that ironically, thing that happens when you are a full-time athlete, especially in college, where your whole life is wrapped up in working to get grades, and then working really hard to practice every day, like really pushing yourself, being part of a team that pushes you back, and you're competing for a spot in a boat. And it can be a very all-encompassing experience, which, if you enjoy it, is amazing. When you graduate and you hit the real world and have a 9-to-5, it's a pretty jarring experience where you lose all these people who you saw every day, and you lose this fulfilling pursuit that you had just done year after year into, and you move into this area where you just have the rest of your life in front of you, and you need to now make those goals for yourself. And that was a series of life experiences that I felt like I was ready for when I finished college, but it took me, I would say, until last year before I really was able to conquer all of the things that I had struggled with in relation to losing that. Part of it obviously is being on part of a team again, but being part of a team where I'm setting those goals and I can create that fulfillment for myself, and I think that has given me a really good sense of personal calmness, an understanding that it's a goal that I'm setting for myself, and it is arbitrary, and there's some like grander meaning to it, but that it's something that I am working towards and can find the meaning in for myself, and that's something that I don't think I would have been able to do if I hadn't been part of that drawing and had seen the ways that you can set goals for long term and take bite-sized chunks out of the mountain that is getting there, but do it within the lack of confinement that is, I don't know, I guess being an adult in the world. So I can talk about things like energy levels. I generally was happier. I was generally healthier. I felt better moving, doing housework even. Like we bought a house last year, and I've had to do a ton of backbreaking work in my backyard, and we had this like concrete pad that I had to pull out, which was a nightmare. But and all those things, my life is just easier, and I feel better doing all those things, and I don't have any anxiety about going out and needing to lift heavy things and do it for a few hours. And I think that those are all things that come from just being in a better place with my health and fitness in general. But definitely that broader fulfillment is a thing that I don't think I would have found if I didn't work with Jack and a team. Or maybe I might have, but it would have taken longer, and I don't think I would have been able to see that big picture and slot that puzzle piece into I guess my mental landscape, my mental, emotional, spiritual, however you want to say it, landscape, and find that just better understanding of what fulfillment is, what goals are, and all that. So I guess it's just a final little note here. The Edge Running Team was just was really impactful for a lot of reasons, and I can't recommend it enough to anyone who is looking for a team and looking for a coach who can get the most out of them.